Gareth, obviously, look, you're out here with myself in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. We caught up very briefly yesterday, but that's yesterday. What's the last week been like for you?
Um, well, I've just been preparing for this week. I stayed out in Dubai and met up with friends, stayed out in the Middle East, enjoyed the sun, did a lot of swimming, had a Zoom call with Tyson Fury, had a Zoom call with Lennox Lewis, and then really began preparation for coming here, which involved interviewing people around Tyson Fury's camp, his strength and conditioning coach, his dietitian, his manager, um, getting involved, chasing Alex Krasiuk for some information, and really just getting ready for what is an amazing end to the year and a very, very busy week. And then, like everyone else, we seem to have, many of us, travelled overnight on very busy flights and got in for the beginning of fight week, media day on a Monday, which was extraordinarily busy yesterday. So I'm raring to go, sitting with you now, having just had 10 hours sleep. And, it's been a very interesting week, but I really have felt the need to research and prepare stories ready for this huge week. How about you?
Yeah, same. I've been really looking forward to this one. I did have a card in Monaco, which was nice, different. My first time in the Principality. I was there for Akhmadaliev versus Espinoza. Chev Clark was on the card as well, suffered defeat. Gary Cully versus Maxi Hughes. So it was actually a small card, but a nice card. And it kind of got me mentally prepared for this one. And this one, obviously, as you say, the big one, the perfect way to end the year, the best two heavyweights in the world duking it out again. I did watch, and I'm sure you watched it as well. You're in it quite a lot. The Undisputed Netflix doc by the We Go Again guys, Tom Day and the team, which I thought was fantastic. Honestly, just the way it was shot, and I don't know, just a privilege to be in something like that with yourself, with Bunsey, with Teddy Atlas, and everyone else, Spencer Brown, obviously Fury, Usyk, and I thought they told the story of just
Mm.
the journey of both fighters, um, the romance of boxing, the highs, the lows, the danger. I thought honestly a fantastic doc to shout out to those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd forgotten that. I did watch it myself poolside, and I did see Tom and Arthur Locke, his colleague, yesterday, and did congratulate them on, and again thank them for the honour of being in it, because
Mm.
there will be historical timepieces as well that they've created. You know, they did it with um, Day of Reckoning, they did it with Battle of the Baddest, they did it with Knockout Chaos. They make great documentaries. They're a great bunch of guys. They're always around, standing over there in the corner, or you turn around, one of their kind of crew of 12
Yeah.
is there wherever you are, and it's always great to sit down in a chair with them in London, in a lit studio and do those things. And again, thanks to them, but also thanks out to Turkey. Thanks go out to Turkey Al Sheikh for putting those guys together in the first place to go out and do these things for the company We Go Again. I also, by the way, and I know we'll chat about it, I watched it. I think I was in the airport. I was on my way to the airport in Dubai. I watched Dillian Whyte's fight with Ebenezer Tete on DAZN as well. It was
Oh
a DAZN
God.
event. I did it. I watched the 7 rounds or 6 rounds of Dillian Whyte, and I'm glad he's back.
I love the way you just stop there, like full stop, boom.
Boom.
Um, yeah, yeah. Look, it wasn't the greatest performance, and Dillian White himself knows it wasn't the best. At best, he's a part-time boxer. He didn't look fit. He looked out of shape. I mean, Ebenezer Tete, to be fair to him, came to scrap, but Dillian White should be getting rid of an Ebenezer Tete type fighter in a couple of rounds. But who knows? Maybe the 7 rounds were good for him. I, I I was asked kind of what I want to see next with Dillian White, and look, he still has options, but for me, just make the trilogy with Derek Chisora if Derek Chisora gets past Otto Volin, and that be that. They both kind of set off into the sunset, and they've had decent careers. In fact, very, very good careers. But you can clearly see it's coming to the end with Dillian, as it should be. He's been through a lot of fights. He's no spring chicken. Was he 36, 37? But yeah, I was I was a bit surprised by that performance from Dillian. I thought we'd look a bit more fitter, but
I'd like, yeah, but there's still a Lawrence Okoli fight there for him to have.
yes, true, true.
Um, he's uh, he's 37 in April. Yeah.
Okay.
To the there's a Lawrence Coley fight that would sell. I think
Mm.
there's there's an Anthony Joshua fight there if he wants it. I think, and Joshua wants it. I don't know if it's still going to be viable, but from what Dillian Whyte was saying afterwards, he wants to fight. He wants to have a very busy 2025.
Kept on saying 4 fights, didn't he? Like 4 fights
Yeah,
in
yeah.
2025.
I don't mind him fighting on. I think I think he's built for it, and he's lost a bit of time because of what happened, because of the adverse findings. So I I'm glad to have him back. I do mean that because I think he's Ebenezer Tete as well was game in that fight.
Yeah.
He kind of did get him out of there. I thought he was going to stop Tete after a couple of rounds when he hit him to the body. But Tete's a peculiar fighter. I mean, you had the theory that he's not 36; he's more like 56. But
Yeah,
um,
100%.
you said last time we spoke. But
Yeah, I change it now. I go middle of the ground, 46.
there you go. No,
Yeah,
but
middle of the ground.
I think Dillian is. Look, if you'll probably disagree with this one, but there's even a Parker fight there as well. But Derek, I agree with you, is probably the best option.
You know what it is for me and Dillian? It's obviously look, Dillian prior to the Fury fight, I think I remember there was a conversation about Dillian sort of being a top five, top six heavyweight. Obviously he's not that anymore, and that's just because he's not had enough fights. It's that simple, really. Um, so maybe there are fun fights out there for him against guys sort of floating in and around the top 15. Maybe you have those type of fights. Maybe my problem is that I'm viewing Dillian as that top five guy still. And okay, if you're not the top five guy, stop. Whereas you're right, maybe have fun fights against Wilder. Maybe he's mentioned Wilder a few times, Chisora, Okoli. There are fun fights out there to still be had for Dillian, and maybe just not at the very top level of
Yeah, I
boxing.
agree with you. I agree with you. I think that's the thing with him. He's a fun asset. That's a very good way of putting it. Fun fights. Dillian Whyte is a fun asset to the division. He's going to stand there and skulk at times. He's a massive presence, by the way.
Yeah, 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 big.
Physically, Dillian is a very very big human being. You could probably that probably explains why he became a dad at 13. Why he became, he's always been ahead of
Yeah,
himself
I get you.
ways. And it's amazing to think he was a dad at 13. And I've got a soft spot for Dillian. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to admit it, because I've always felt like he's. I sat down and did a. I've always got on well with him, but when I sat down and did an off the cuff with him, in Portugal, and he went really, really deep on his life. You know how they go narrow and deep, those off the cuff
Yeah,
interviews, if you do them right and you get the time of people and they're in the right mood. And I'll never forget what he told me that day about growing up in Jamaica and about what happened to his dad and things he's witnessed and having to walk around certain areas to get to a gym when he was a teenager because he did have to avoid the kind of postcode gangs.
mm,
So it's an extra 40-minute walk, not to get involved in a fight or the possibility of being stabbed and so on. And what his mother means to him and what he now is for his children and what an exemplary figure he wants to be for young people because there's a really good heart in Dillian as well in my view, and he's a beast. And so as long as he wants to stay around, I'm going to support him in his career.
yeah. We always talk about the sport of boxing changing people's lives and taking them on a different trajectory, different route, different direction. And Dillian's one of those fighters. Look, we're going to talk about Tyson Fury a bit later, obviously, and he's another one of those fighters where boxing's saved him from sort of going the wrong way as well later on in his life. So look, we always talk about how boxing helps people, and I think Dillian Whyte's a good example of how boxing has saved lives, saved AJ's, saved Chisora's, so many we can go on and on and on. Female fights on the weekend, wins for Natasha Jonas and Lauren Price, sets up their unification fight in March. What did you make of both ladies?
Well, good to see Lauren Price. One of the things that I've mentioned about Lauren, brilliant as she is about her power. And I thought she stepped in on her punches. She was in against what I would say was someone she was expected to win in Bexy Matus.
Yeah,
And, just come out of Colombia. Yes, undefeated. Yes, six knockouts out of 7, but clearly not of the class of Lauren Price, an Olympian who is probably going to go on to be a veritable world champion. So she did what I expected her to do, with a bit of spite as well. I liked the way she spoke afterwards. Tasha Jonas put in another resounding performance against Ivana Habazin of Croatia. Again, she is a world level opponent, but Tasha is that level above.
yeah,
Thought she was outstanding. And I'm glad the two women came together afterwards and gave it to each other a little bit.
loved it, loved it.
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it?
Mm. You know what? We don't see that from Lauren as much. I think
Oh,
we maybe, and to be fair, Tasha not as much either, but we certainly don't see the personality from Lauren that I think a lot of people have been saying. Let's see a bit more personality. We know the fighting skills are there. You don't get an Olympic gold medal if you're not a good fighter, but we haven't seen the personality. And all of a sudden, we saw it, and I was like, yes. I was literally screaming. I was like, okay, yes, this is what we want to see. A bit more of that, and I think it's going to be a good fight in March. And look, credit to Tasha. Tasha's age and where she is in her career. She's a mother, who she's fought and who she continues to fight right towards the end of her career. I mean, to fight a Lauren Price, which might be, Tasha's last 2 or 3 fights, maybe her last fight, you got to give credit to. She's not ducking and dodging and diving and getting the easier fights. She's going straight to the hardest fights. And credit to Tasha for doing so. I think it's a good
yeah,
one. And I think
yeah.
Ben Shalom needs a good card. And I think this could be a good one.
Yeah, well, 41 in June she is, Tasha's.
Wow.
I know, and I mean, the thing is about her, she's looks like a supermodel. She's got the face of a supermodel, hasn't she?
Mm.
Extraordinary, and not a line seemingly on her face. So you don't think of her as old, and she doesn't fight like an older fighter either. I thought she was very smart on Saturday night. I think the big thing, as you rightly mentioned, there is, Lauren Price in her mid-20s. This is a massive opportunity for her against a huge name in women's boxing. I mean, Natasha Jonas, I think, is arguably in the top 5 in the world, pound for pound, and certainly in terms of achievement as well, going up and down the weight divisions, all the way to light middleweight, or super welterweight as it's called now. And I think it's a
But
really
why doesn't she get the respect for that? It's very interesting. You just said that top 5 pound for pound, and like I thought as you said, I was thinking, yeah, then you are correct. I can't think of 5 above her, but I almost feel like when there's a conversation, I never really hear Tasha's name. Obviously, you hear Clarissa and Katie, Amanda, fair, but then you hear names like Alicia Baumgardner, Chantel Cameron, Michaela Maya. You don't really hear Tasha's name as much in that topic of conversation. Why is she always being skipped?
she's not busy on social media, is she? One, she's
True,
not
true.
someone putting herself out there in a way that the others do. I mean,
Mm.
Clarissa Shields seems to be she's either fighting or an opening of something, but be it her own or winning an award every other night. You know,
Yeah,
or,
yeah,
nothing wrong with that. Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor obviously enormous, given the projection they've been helped with by Most Valuable Promotions and their 2 extraordinary fights, which probably will become a trilogy in 2025.
Mhm.
Outside that, like you say, Baumgartner's very noisy. But yeah, I can go on and name 25 women here, but
Yeah.
in terms of achievement, um, Tasha, why does she not get it? I don't know. That's a very good question.
Mhm.
But I'm saying it now that definitely top 10, maybe top 5 or 6 in
Yeah.
terms of achievement. But I'm going to say dot dot dot. Both southpaws, her and Lauren Price, back to the original story, full circle. It's a very tough fight. This one. I think
Yeah. Very.
I think Tasha's got probably the advantages just in hand speed and punch output. I think. Wow, it's going to be a really tricky fight between 2 southpaws. It's one of those 10 2-minute round fights that's going
Yes.
to pass really quickly, and we're going to be arguing afterwards about who's won it.
It's a good fight. It's a good fight. Credit to both ladies. Credit to Boxer and Ben Shalom for putting this one on. All right, you're listening to Find Out Extra on talkSPORT 2. Still to come. We are going to be get stuck into Saturday night in Riyadh, including the ongoing situation with Dennis McCann. We're going to hear from his promoter, Frank Warren. But up next, we're going to get stuck into the main event this weekend. Welcome back. You're listening to Find Out Extra on talkSPORT 2. Ade Oladipo, the great Gareth A. Davies. All right, Gareth, let's do this. Let's get into it. Alexander Usyk versus Tyson Fury 2. The first fight was fantastic, ebbed and flowed, ups and downs. That 9th round, the 12th round, all the rounds, right? As we approach this one, before we hear from Alex Krassyuk, who always speaks so well, Alexander Usyk's manager, where are your thoughts, emotions, and feelings as we are now, just 4 days out from the big one?
Well, Tyson Fury's got it all to do. Everything I've heard in the background, he's had an extraordinary camp. He's absolutely ready to go, and in fact, can't wait to get going. And he's primed. It's been a very long camp. No stone unturned. I think he's very sharp, very conditioned. I think they'll need to keep him mentally in the right place this week. Didn't look like he wanted to be there yesterday for me, but that means he's ready. Spoke to him and say last week, and he seemed like ready to go. And I think I like that about him. I like a fighter when they're seemingly in a bit of a mood, ready to go, that they're just not all laughing and japing around. Big change in Tyson Fury, but you know that's probably where he needs to be. Yesterday, I found the entourage was enormous and has grown for Alexander Usyk. He looked big to me. Tyson looks very long and lean to me, by the way. Usyk looks big. He looked big when he came in, but he also had the bearing of being the world champion. Shoulders broad, head high, seemingly 150 people in that. What color was it now? They've got a new color track. Purple. Yeah. It was obviously the blue and yellow of Ukraine before, but now they've still got Ukraine on them, but they've got the purple. The purple gang are in. What does it say? UA on their backs. Usyk Alexander. Usyk Alexander.
It's funny about that tracksuit. Apologies, cut across. It's funny about the tracksuit because I spoke to his interpreter, was there yesterday, or someone who's entourage that was doing the interpreting for him. And I asked about the tracksuit because I was like, oh, it's a nice tracksuit. And she said, no, everything on this tracksuit means something. Yeah, and she kind of looked at the badge. She said, this is the symbol of this. This is the warrior. This is the amount of, like, literally everything on the tracksuit. Whereas I just looked at it as a pattern, as I thought it was. She was like, no. It all means something. Don't look at it as just, this is a splash of paint on a purple tracksuit with Alexander Usyk's initials. It means everything. And I was like, wow, okay, they are ready. But you are right about Alexander Usyk's entourage. It has grown. Like he had like 4 cameramen with him. Like, I'm not joking. Like 4 cameramen came in the room as well as the camera, my camera set up. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. It happens, right? He is, one of the biggest boxers in the world, but it has grown a little. Whereas Fury seems to have trimmed somewhat, maybe because John's not around. It feels like that, but Fury's definitely cut the fat away from his entourage.
I think what they're doing is they're keeping it very simple for Tyson Fury because I know the fact that his moods are really taken into account with his bipolar, and that can be talked about with Christian Blacklock, his strength and conditioning coach, who says Tyson loves strength work. He's done a lot of strength work in this camp, and he started 4 months ago. Greg Marriott, his nutritionist, can talk about wanting Tyson to have the right food to put him in the right mood, because he's not a greens eater, by the way. He never liked greens, but they found wheatgrass and spirulina for him and the right vitamins. And so I've been delving into all these areas, talking with his manager, Spencer Brown, obviously he's promoter of Gold Star as well, about just getting things right mentally for Tyson as they do this bit, because he was literally in prison camp, they called it, for 3 months in Malta. he even revealed overnight, I've seen a clip where he hasn't spoken to Paris, his wife, mother of their 7 children, for 3 months. Extraordinary. But as Marvin Hagler said, when you go into camp, you should be going into jail. And that's where he's been. So I'm fascinated to see where he's coming out of there. And his strength work is off the charts, apparently. For me, Alexander Usyk, final thing for me on this. Alexander Usyk yesterday looked like a Hercules figure. He was really carrying himself like a champion. I presented him with my book yesterday, and he in the melee, but he took time, only a few seconds, but he took time to have a look at it. I found him very focused. He spoke with the national media and was very focused. I witnessed that. He really does have the bearing of being the champion. And I know we've got some audio with Alex Krasiuk, who I sat down with yesterday, and he was fascinating on Alexander at the moment.
Yeah, let's hear from Alex Krasiuk then. This is what he said about Alexander Usyk, not just about obviously the lead up to this one, but also about the size of Alexander Usyk as well, who does, I think, look a bit bigger this time.
If you have science behind this, you can do it easily. Well, not easily. It means fast. It's not easy because the way he trains and the energy he spends is something you cannot compare with probably any athlete in the world, the work he does. But the result he gets is corresponding. I mean, if you work hard, you play hard.
What can I just ask, when you looked back on the first fight with him during camp, in Spain of course, what were the things you picked out that you are going to have to do better for the second fight?
You mean when he was in the first camp?
Yeah.
Trust me, that was probably the most horrible camp he ever had. And I tell you why. Because it started in September and it ended in May. So that was the longest, because we had 2 times the fight was rescheduled.
Back to back. Yeah.
Exactly. So initially December, then February, then May.
Alex Krasiuk always speaks well, one of the good guys in this sport. And look, he wouldn't commit to Alexander Usyk being bigger come fight night, but he does look bigger. I did ask Usyk about that. I said, you always weigh 222 pounds, there or thereabouts. I mean, your first fight against Chaz Witherspoon, I think you're trying to find your weight. I said, you found it now at 222. I said, why is that? And he tried to kind of be non-committal. He's like, what? Almost like he didn't know that we knew. I was like, no, you weigh 222 pounds all the time. He's like, we just found our weight. So I do think he will be 222 pounds on the night. Although he looks bigger, I do think he treats it like a weight class. And I think he knows 222 pounds is just his weight. It enables him to go 12 rounds. It enables him to be light on his feet and to be quite strong as well. So I do think, although he does look big, and I agree with you, Hercules-like, I think he's going to come in at 222.
Yeah, and I think what the advantage you've got as heavyweights is you can do more strength work. You can put a little bit more muscle on. You can up your markers and your levels. You know, you like gym work. That you know that if you go through certain phases, imagine when you've got a team doing it for you, they want you to be stronger. They want you to have more tensile strength. They want you to have greater power in your punches. They want to increase your, even by detailed, tiny minutiae that could make a difference in a razor close fight, which is what the last one was. It was a close fight. You either had it 1, 2, or 3 rounds. Most people had it 1, 2, or 3 rounds for Usyk, depending on the swing rounds and obviously the 10-8 round in the 9th round when he had Fury wobbling. But the key for both guys is they've got extraordinary teams around them. They are ultimate athletes. Again, the things that Krasiuk tells me, which I find fascinating, are that Alexander Usyk will even say a prayer for his opponents, that there's no spite in him, that he doesn't actually want to hurt his opponents. He just wants them to go home safely to their families afterwards. That's how he feels about it, even though he calls on the ancient Cossack warriors in his soul, if you like, and on his departed father for inspiration and his country. And as Krasiuk says, he is the heroic figure in his country, even though many, many thousands of men are at war and women are at war with Russia right now. He's such a heroic figure for the country. So they're two extraordinary characters. That's it. You know, it's a salivating moment being here around it, and we haven't even started the set pieces yet. It's going to be a long week for both men as well, and hopefully a fight befitting of that on Saturday night.
Yeah, back to Tyson Fury. Look, I interviewed him. You always speak to him, and I've spoken to Tyson Fury, I don't know how many times in the last few years, and I've been fortunate to speak to Tyson Fury. I mean, anytime you get to speak to one of the best heavyweights of this generation, maybe of all time, you have to be lucky and pinch yourself. Yesterday was the first time where I felt like he either didn't want to talk, and look, you have to do so many interviews, and it's the same questions, and it gets boring. Or he's ready for war. And I initially, when I finished talking to him, I almost took it personal. Like, oh, was it something I said? Like, oh, you know, he's being very frosty. It's one word answers. But then when I got back to my room, I was like, no. These are guys that are 3 or 4 days away from a life-changing event. And they're just ready to go. They're just ready to go. And he's now wound so tightly, it's like a spring that's just wanting to explode. So I think he's fully locked in, like fully locked in. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if he means he's going to win, but he's fully locked in.
That was so well put, how you described that, because as I said at the top of the show, when I spoke to him last Thursday, he was fairly monosyllabic then. He wasn't completely, but you know, the only moment where he opened up really was talking about watching a vampire series, Van Helsing, because it was because it wasn't to do with boxing, and it was to do with getting away from what he was going through, the grind every day. And like you say, I always feel the same when I sit down with Artur Beterbiev, that he gives so little away. I mean, that's what every interview I feel like is with Artur Beterbiev, where he's sitting back and saying, I'm going to give you a certain amount. I'm going to give you 7% of me right now in this interview. You might be able to get to 9%, but that's it. And it isn't going to 10% today, and it never will. But I think what is self-evident with Tyson Fury, and I think we had that yesterday, was I'm going to come in, do my duties, and get out of here.
Yes.
I've done enough. I'm ready. And I think maybe his bipolar is part of that. Maybe his seriousness about wanting to fight is part of that. Maybe kind of the realization that this is the most important fight of his career, and it truly is. There'll never be a more important fight for Tyson Fury. The comeback from defeat is the biggest fight in your career. It was the biggest for Muhammad Ali. It was the biggest for Lennox Lewis. It was the biggest for Mike Tyson. It was the biggest for so many heavyweights in history, so many fighters. So there will be some realization dawning on him as well. And they're both extraordinary characters. I mean, as you say, you sat there with Tyson Fury. He's talked about, in terms of characterization, in terms of a public figure in sport, as one of the greatest characters in the world. This is a guy that's worn Batman suits, dipped his hands in petrol apparently, takes the microphone and sings to his wife after events, goes into WWE events. He's 6'9", 20 stone. You know, he's from a traveller family that once lived in caravans. It's an extraordinary story. He's going to be worth hundreds of millions of pounds at the end of it. He thought about killing himself. He ballooned to nearly 30 stone. I mean, you're sitting with a guy whose story is extraordinary, and yet he's fighting one of the very greatest on Saturday night for our entertainment, and they love it. So what isn't there to like about this scenario where he won't give you answers?
Yeah, you're right. No, you are correct. When you really think about it, like, him not giving me answers is like, that means absolutely nothing to him. Like, I mean, it's the tiniest of things for him, where for me it was like, oh my God, I didn't get this perfectly worded response from Tyson Fury. My life's over. So
Did you not go into, are you a cat person or a dog person? Did you almost resort to that in the end or not?
I almost resorted into a joke, but then I looked at his face and I realized this isn't the time for a joke at it. He's now ready to kill. This is it now. This is it. So leave it alone.
And that interview, can I ask you, that interview, obviously for DAZN, I assume, yeah?
Yeah.
Is that going out this week, or is
I think it goes out tomorrow. Yes.
Okay, cool. So it is the beginning of Riyadh Fight Week's interview.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the beginning of Riyadh Fight Week, and I think it'll be interesting to see what everyone's take is from that interview, whether or not Fury's nervous, Fury doesn't like Ade, Fury's ready to go, etc. I think everyone's take is going to be completely different, but the one take I got from it, and I'll say it again, is that I think he's ready to go.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That is it. That's what I'm hearing from everyone around him. That's what I've heard, and all that research I've been talking about with you for the last couple of weeks. Everyone in his camp, he is just ready to go, and it's almost like he can't wait for Saturday night. You know?
Yeah, he just wants it now.
Fast, ready to go. Start fast, stronger. Get that big long jab out there. Keep the shell right. Be as active as Usyk. Oh, I'm getting excited about this week.
We're not going to obviously do a show until after the fight, which is probably going to be our end of year wrap show as well. We're going to see each other, correct? Way before the event, many times, every event. We've got so many events this week. But this will be the last time on air I can ask you this question. Who do you think wins on Saturday?
I think Fury does it this time on points, and he just does it. And I think he's going to make adjustments. He's going to have to be busier. He's going to have to use his jab a lot more. He's going to have to keep his left hand up more. I think he's going to go to the body. He's going to that effective uppercut into the body. But I think Usyk's going to be busier as well. And I think we're going to get a razor tight fight. And I think Fury's probably going to win just this time on split points. How about you?
I think Fury nicks it. And I mean just nicks it. I think he's gonna have to come through something. Might have to come through something early. Demons of the first fight might come back, but I just feel like he has to win, and because he has to win, he will win. But Usyk always wins. I'm 51-49 Fury. It could change before the fight, but 51-49 Fury just. I don't know. It's a tough one. All right, you're listening to Fight Extra.
Can I say one more thing before you go off? Krasiuk saying that if Fury loses, he's finished. Do you agree with that or not?
I said, and yes, I do. I said this to Fury actually yesterday. I do think there's a good chance he retires. I do think, like you said, he hasn't spoken to his wife in 3 months. He's got 7 kids. This is all now extra bonus time for Tyson Fury. It's been extra bonus time since the Vladimir Klitschko win. He already conquered what he needed to conquer and show that he was the best in the world then. Since then, he's made hundreds of millions, had Netflix documentaries that have been the biggest and most watched thing on Netflix. He's had #1s. He's been the #1 best book seller. He's been in the WWE. I think he can go and act. I feel like what's the want? I don't know what's the want anymore. So I do think if he loses, yes, there's money out there for an AJ. In fact, there'll always be. I mean, look at Vladimir Klitschko trying to come back at 48. But I think if he loses, I think he might just say, you know what? It's been a fantastic run, an incredible ride. That's that, ladies and gentlemen. I really do think that's going to happen.
I think he'll fight Joshua still. He might, because I asked him about this last week. Win, lose, or draw. If he wins, we probably get the trilogy with Alexander. And part of me believes they could fight in between Joshua, but Joshua needs a win first before they fight. But there is a feeling that we ought to see in this era Fury against Joshua, in my view. To not have it, to not have because it doesn't matter that they might have lost to other people. I still think we need to see them fight each other. I think Fury might eschew that to begin with, but I think he'll be tempted back in because they could. The other thing about it is business for them both. They're going to earn a minimum together of 50 million, if not more. So I just think I can't not see the fight happening. But then again, like you say, if Fury wants to walk away because he's done it all, then that's fine.
Yeah, it would be a shame for the sport if we haven't seen AJ Fury. We're not going to see AJ Wilder, I don't think. So yeah, it would be a shame, but I don't know. Sometimes I look at Fury and as you say, you mentioned the bipolar. He could wake up one day and say no. He could wake up another day and say, yeah, let's do it. So you just never know with Mr. Tyson Fury. All right, you're listening to Fight Extra on talkSPORT 2. Next up, we're going to take a look at the undercard, and we're going to hear from Frank Warren after one of his fighters, Dennis McCann, failed a drugs test. Welcome back. You're listening to Fight Extra on talkSPORT 2. Ade Oladipo, Gareth A. Davies. All right, enough on Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury for now. Let's focus on the undercard. And I think it's a good undercard as well. I know, like, a lot of people like, it's not a great undercard. I do think it's a very pro-British European undercard. So I can understand why the Americans are not too pleased about it. One of the fights that I was desperate to see was Peter McGrail versus Dennis McCann. That is no longer. Dennis McCann tested positive for a banned substance. Before we dive into this, let's hear from his promoter, Frank Warren, on this. This is what Frank Warren had to say when I think you spoke to him, Gareth, regarding Dennis McCann's adverse finding.
No, all that's happened at the moment is we've been notified by VADA that he has, as you say, tested positive for banned substances. And what he'll have to do now is obviously get the B sample tested, and then there'll be a hearing, and they will determine, or he's got to explain why, if the B sample was also positive, why that is in his system. If he's guilty and that can't be determined until there is a hearing, then obviously he'll pay the price. If he's not, then obviously he'll carry on boxing. But one thing's for sure, what you just said, let's wait until we get the decision of the hearing.
Frank Warren there saying that we should wait for the B sample. I will say this. Look, everyone says let's wait for the B sample. It's very rare, and I mean very, very, very rare, that the B sample doesn't show what the initial A sample found. So I think we all can agree here, or at least, look, I don't want anyone to get sued, but I think we all can agree here that Dennis McCann's B sample will be the same as his A sample. And that's just not great for the sport, is it? I mean, we're continually asked about drugs in the sport, and we try to fight back and throw punches and say, no, the sport's trying to keep itself clean, and then all of a sudden something like this happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very unfortunate situation for, like you say, for Peter McGrail, Dennis McCann himself, for Frank Warren. I mean, it wasn't me who spoke to, it was to Adam Catterall and Sam Jones, who were on Fight Night on Saturday night. Frank joined the show. But look, Dennis has been a friend of ours for a long time in terms of coming on lots of shows. He works very hard. He puts himself out there. He loves the sport. He lives the life. Something's gone wrong here. I'm going to reserve judgment till the B sample comes and the hearing takes place. He's not out here. It's not going to be a great scenario for him. He lives the life. So whatever he's done or whatever he's taken or whatever's happened with the sample will come to light eventually. I don't even know what the substance is at the moment. I haven't had time to look into that. Peter McGrail gets a fight on Saturday night against Reese Edwards. Reese Edwards. Peter was knocking about yesterday, didn't do any interviews. They were keeping him away from the media until Reese Edwards was announced, and no doubt he'll speak tonight. So I'm glad he's got his fight on Saturday night. But yeah, like you say, it's the toughest scenario to be around and discuss in the sport, because obviously if people take banned substances to enhance their body, it's wrong in the sport. It's as simple as that. It's an inherently dangerous sport. This will make you blue in the face. It's an inherently dangerous sport. We need to protect fighters from fighting fighters on banned substances who enhance their bodies, because you can get legally killed in the ring, and that's the reason for it.
Yeah, and look, you're right. Let's discuss it more once we know exactly what he's been tested positive for, and then we can, I guess, have a deep dive and a deep discussion into it. For now, as you say, let's wait until we know a bit more information. All right, let's talk about the undercard. In terms of sort of fights on the undercard, again, I said that the one I was looking forward to was Dennis McCann versus Peter McGrail. It's now turned to Moses Itauma versus Dempsey McKee, more for Moses. I was lucky enough to be in an interview yesterday with Darren Barker, was speaking to Moses, and Moses was saying that he spoke to Ben Davison and he spoke to Frank. Obviously, he's trying to chase this Mike Tyson record. And Darren asked him, look, if Daniel Dubois comes through Joseph Parker, would you fight Daniel Dubois next? And he said he's spoken to Ben about it, and they were all in agreement that yes, they would do it. They would go for Daniel Dubois to give Moses that opportunity to break Mike Tyson's record as being the youngest heavyweight champion of all time. Is that the wrong or right thing to do?
19 years. He is 19 years old. He's 20 years old just this month, isn't he, Moses? Oh.
I love the story behind it.
He's 10-0 with 8 KOs. So let's say he looks brilliant against Dempsey McKean, who I interviewed yesterday as well. And I spoke to Moses yesterday and to Ben Davison and Lee Wiley, Ben's co-coach, strategist. Yes, I think yes, because I think back to Spinks winning the Olympic gold and then winning the world title from Ali. I'm right. I might be wrong on this. After 7 or 8 fights himself, and then obviously Ali avenging it rather straight away at the Astrodome in front of a record-breaking crowd 6 months later. So it's been done before, but this early in a career. But Moses doesn't have an extensive amateur pedigree. It's a different time. Having said that, stories have emerged now for the last year, Ade, about, well, the latest is from Lawrence Okoli saying that his hardest spar ever was with a 15-year-old Moses Itauma. I don't know if you heard that last week.
Yeah.
But Joe Joyce was in the ring with him when Moses was pulling off his school tie and shirt straight after school at age 16. He's been in camp with Tyson Fury. I mean, we both know Moses pretty well now. I mean, I really enjoy him. He's a great kid.
Okay. Would it be right? Okay, we want to see it. Would it be right for Frank to do it? But we are invested. Would it be right for Frank to do it?
It would. And if he beat Daniel Dubois in a thriller, let's say, and they were going to have 2 fights, it would make huge money for him at the age of 20. It would put him resolutely as a sports star. He seems to be able to carry everything. I am getting quite excited at the thought of them stepping into a ring together because the jeopardy of how young he is and could he deal with the situation, because he seems nerveless. Maybe it's good to strike while the iron's hot. The only thing he's not going to be able to do is have gimmies afterwards, because he's going to have to fight Parker. He's going to have to fight
Okoli.
He's going to have to fight Zhang. He's going to have to fight maybe Alexander Usyk if he fancied it. And remember, Moses looks like a tricky southpaw as well. So I know I can see your excitement. Maybe it is the right thing to do. Maybe it is, and you know, maybe in 2 years' time, if he's won 5 more fights, his entourage is so big we can't even get anywhere near him because he's worth 150 million at 22. You know,
honestly, maybe I'd love it, because all of a sudden. It's what we don't really have over here as well. And even AJ wasn't able to do it, is penetrate the American market. All of a sudden, the Americans will be saying, who is this kid that's broke Mike Tyson's record? He automatically will be linked with Mike Tyson forever. Yeah. And Americans would want to know him as well. And say what you want about how good AJ and how big AJ was. He wasn't able to break that market. Yeah. Dubois isn't going to break that market, I don't think. So I love it. I love the idea of it. I think it's risky, but this is boxing. I mean, getting in the ring's risky. Fighting's risky. So I think it's one, and that's not. I feel like we've completely overlooked Dempsey McKean here, and I apologize to Dempsey and his team. It's just we are obviously going to be excited about a Brit breaking through and potentially becoming the face of this heavyweight scene, and I like the idea of it happening. And I think with Frank Warren, he's got the best promoter in terms of knowing how to build fighters towards that. Frank's going to have to do something he won't want to do, because Frank likes to build fighters. He's going to have to kind of just forego that and just chuck him into the deep end very quickly, just to see if this record can happen.
I mean, we want it to happen. I don't think it will, but we're dreaming there. We're fantasizing about what his life could be like. And do you think he doesn't think about things like that? Of course he does. I would strike now while the iron's hot. Everyone talks so brilliantly of him in the background. If he can handle the big occasions, physically, emotionally, and mentally. There's no time to waste, in my view, especially given Saudi Arabian investment in boxing, the fact that Turkey Al Sheikh is probably the guy that would really invest in fights for Moses Itauma. There's massive opportunities there right now, and if we're thinking about them and speaking them into existence, do you think they're not?
True, very true. That's the second of 3 heavyweight fights. Obviously, we've spoken about Alexander Usyk, Tyson Fury, Dempsey McCann there, Moses Itauma, obviously fully focused on Moses. Johnny Fisher, Dave Allen is an interesting one. Johnny Fisher, again, a prospect, very different from Moses. I think they're going to know this is one that needs to be taken a bit slower, which is going to be difficult for Eddie because Johnny Fisher brings a massive fan base. I'm hearing a few hundred are flying out from England to Saudi Arabia. The Bosch Army are here a few days before Christmas as well, which is insane, incredible. Credit to him. He takes on Dave Allen, obviously 2 sparring partners, friends, if you like. They're going to put that aside come December 21st. This is one that I think raised eyebrows a little bit because we haven't seen much of Dave at the top table, if you like, for a few years, maybe since the David Price fight. It's been a while, but he has been fighting on and off. What do you make of this matchup?
Well, I think it's Johnny Fisher's fight to lose, but I sat with Dave Allen yesterday. Johnny Fisher wasn't at media day yesterday. I think he's arriving today.
He is, yeah.
So, we talked about breakfasts and roasts with him yesterday quite a lot. Because I always find, because I've said to Dave Allen for years, there's something about Dave Allen. I can see him with his own restaurant. Yeah, I can see him. He just looks like a brilliant chef to me. Yeah, and then I've been urging. So we talked about food with him a lot yesterday because he's a great character for me. And remember, he's been through mental health issues. At the top of the show, he talked about transformation. He's a very lovable character and a cult figure in British boxing. Dave Allen. He's fought some big names, of course, but he really fancies upsetting the apple cart here. I don't think he will. I think Fisher's too active to be taken to take this lightly, and I think he's too wise to know that Dave Allen is a serious guy out there. And Dave Allen's always bigger than you think he is always bigger than you assume he is, because he's.
I was just thinking that I saw him in the lift, and I was like, my God, you're a big guy.
He is a big guy.
He is a big guy. Maybe because he's in the land of the giants, but he's definitely a solid heavyweight.
Definitely, no question about it. And he's saying he really believes he's going to create an upset here. And if he does, Fisher's just got to rematch him and he'll double his money. So we shall see. But I do favour Johnny Fisher in this because I think he's got the bit between his teeth. And the fascination for Johnny Fisher is, can he get the big Moses Itauma fight down the line at some point and have a big payday? Because, the big question mark with Johnny is how far can he go in the heavyweight division as well? He's got a massive following. Bums on seats really does count. And, he's a sensation in lots of ways and he lives the life. So it's great. It's the same as Dempsey McCann's got the opportunity to create an upset. He looked very good against Filip Hrgovic and his stop rose even though he lost. So both of those fights, you do favour Johnny Fisher. So do the bookmakers and Moses Itauma, but they're still interesting fights because of the opponents.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And look, I wouldn't mind seeing Johnny Fisher versus David Ade. Obviously, Ade a couple of weeks ago beat Solomon Dakers for the English title. I think that's really where Johnny should be looking at if he comes through this one. A few more fights in the undercard, but I do want to just touch on one more very quickly before we wrap this show, and that's Usyk, who was supposed to be taking on Israel Madrimov. Israel Madrimov has pulled out of the fight. I think it's bronchitis or something along those lines.
No, it's not with bronchitis. It's the fact.
What was it?
It's the fact he's fighting.
His team have said bronchitis. Now, I don't want to be the conspiracy theorist here. I'm just going with what the team has said.
No, it's because he's fighting Virgil Ortiz in 2 months' time.
They've said bronchitis. They said he's pulled out bronchitis and he's ill. Yeah. Indeed. But yeah, Ishmael Davis steps up. Good luck to Ishmael. Uysyk's a very, very good fighter. I thought maybe could have got the nod against Virgil Ortiz. But Ishmael is big, he's strong. And look, credit to him. Have gloves, we'll fight. And a bit like the story you told about Dillian Whyte. I mean, Ishmael's come through some stuff as well. I mean, been in prison. I mean, had kids young. He's been through a lot himself. And he looks at this as a really life-changing opportunity.
I spoke to him about exactly that yesterday, and it's the interview with him is out on the talkSPORT YouTube channel, and we did talk about prison and having kids young, and he's a beautiful soul as well. And he was a bad guy before, and he thought he needed to be a gangster, but as you know, when you're around him, there's something quite beautiful about him living a second life, as we spoke about yesterday. And I wish him well. And he's fighting, he said, like, because his stock rose when he fought Josh Kelly at short notice on the Wembley Dubois Joshua undercard. And he said, here I am, a couple of months later, 6 days notice or a few days notice, I'm fighting the number 6 in the world. So I've got to take it with both hands. He's big and grinning, his beautiful face there next to me. And I wish him all the best. And he's not going to have to go looking for Sergei.
Usyk, yeah.
Usyk, yeah. I know I keep struggling with the pronunciation of it. I've got 9 different people telling me how to say it. How do you say it?
Sergei Usyk.
Usyk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I had a look physically. I didn't interview him yesterday. I had a look at Usyk yesterday up close physically. He's a long, lean fighter at super welter, and I like the look of him. But I think Ishmael will match him till he can't match him, or he'll match him and go past him. But you never know in this game. He's a very powerful guy, Ishmael Davies, mentally as well as physically. And this could be one of those Cinderella man stories. It really could.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. I like what you said there. Ishmael might match him until he can't match him. I feel like that's how it could play out. I feel like Ishmael's going to be there with him until maybe it just becomes a bit too much for someone that's not done a proper 12-week fight camp in preparation for Usyk. Whereas Uyshyk's done a proper fight camp in preparation for arguably a better fighter in Israel Madrimov. So look, I do think it's going to be interesting, but this is boxing. And as you say, you never know. All right, very quickly, a couple of stories to end this show. It's been a fantastic one, as always. I want to start with some mad rumor I saw, and that was that Lawrence Okolie could be fighting Vladimir Klitschko. And I do think this is a rumor. I do think it's nonsense, because I think Vladimir Klitschko isn't going to come back for Lawrence Okolie. But if Vladimir Klitschko is going to come back, I mean, you've heard rumors about this. Is he going to come back, Vladimir Klitschko? I mean, is this just Turkey wanting to almost, again, play video games of boxing? Or is there some truth to Vladimir Klitschko wanting to come back and fight Tyson Fury?
I don't see it happening. I think he's been too inactive for too long. I think what tickled me is obviously Lawrence is accused of a kind of hit and grab style, but so is Klitschko hit and grab. So we might have the ultimate hit and grab match here.
But you're so right. Both exactly. My God.
You mentioned the computer game.
Yeah. It literally will be exactly that. Oh, man.
Well, I was giggling when I read the line, but I don't think it would be fair to put Klitschko in with Lawrence Okolie, frankly, at this stage.
Not at this stage. Not at this stage. No. And to wrap this show, UFC event on the weekend, Kobe Covington versus Buckley. Kobe Covington, who he's only had one fight a year for the last, I think, 4 or 5 years. And, his gimmick of being a trash talker, it worked. It got people interested and invested. What was very interesting was that this was not a UFC numbered event. It wasn't one of their pay-per-views. It was a UFC ESPN event. So it's almost like I'm seeing the demise of Kobe, who was 100% a pay-per-view, well, not star, but a pay-per-view fighter. And now he's kind of just fallen off to the point where he's just now a UFC Saturday night ESPN guy. And he lost. He came out of Hulk Hogan and Chael Sonnen. And I think that could be that for Kobe, unfortunately. It worked. The gimmick worked for a while, got people invested, but now it's no longer working.
like you said, the gimmick worked. I think it was the last knockings. He got Hulk Hogan. He ripped his own shirt, didn't he?
Yeah. Which was pre-ripped, by the way. Pre-ripped.
Slightly,
Yeah.
yeah. No, you can think about those things, whether they've rehearsed a previous one earlier. I'm trying to pull. Chael Sonnen did a good job for him all week as well. He's played the heel, he's played the villain, and I think Buckley's put the final nail in the coffin on that one.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Buckley. Called at Kamaru Usman. We'll see if that fight can happen for Buckley, who was at 185. I think he's found his home at 170. All right, busy show. Gareth, my man, thank you very much. We'll catch up this week, no doubt, for a nice coffee, maybe a bit of shisha as well, and some food. For everyone else, if you've been listening to Fight Night Extra on talkSPORT 2, hopefully you've enjoyed it. A reminder that Usyk versus Fury 2 is live on talkSPORT this weekend. You can join Gareth, Spencer, and John Rawl in it this Saturday live on the talkSPORT network and talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel. Big weekend for those gents. Remember, if you've missed any of this show, you can listen to it as a podcast. You can find it under the Fight Night banner on the talkSPORT app, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from. We will be back to look back on something very historical next week.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.